My name is Larry Bodine. I'm the president of Democrats of Greater Tucson, and I want to welcome you to today's meeting with congressional candidate Avery Anderson.
Yeah, thanks, Larry, for having me.
I want to tell all of you about a special event the Democrats of Greater Tucson is having 10 days from now, May 19th, and it is titled Democracy is Under Full-Blown Attack. Our speaker is going to be Frank Figliuzzi, who is the former director of counterintelligence for the FBI. And he's going to analyze the various dangerous events that we face leading up to the election. And if you think I'm exaggerating, think about this. Republican candidate for governor, Kari Lake, and 6 Republican candidates for statewide office still campaigning to overturn the 2020 election. And she calls the press the enemy of the people, just like Trump did. And then we have Mark Fincham, a member of the terrorist group, the Oath Keepers, running to be in charge of our elections. And this is a guy who was at the January 6th coup attempt. Furthermore, elected officials are getting death threats. The Republican chairman of the Maricopa Board of Supervisors got death threats when he started speaking up about election denialism. And then, of course, Congressman Gosar and State Senator Wendy Rogers, they're both seeking re-election since they spoke at a white nationalist conference. So tickets are only $20. I highly urge you to get a ticket. DGT is going to use the money to elect Democratic candidates. And you can find out all the information by going to thedgt.org or just Google Democrats of Greater Tucson. And now I would like to introduce our speaker today, and that is Avery Anderson, who is running for Congress in Tucson's Congressional District 6. At age 28, Avery serves in 2 lead engineering roles at Raytheon. Avery did not intend to get into politics, but it became apparent to him that our current system has major flaws and can use a fresh approach from a younger perspective. And his platform includes a younger generation of representation, appealing to younger voters, transition from fossil fuels to sustainable energy, increasing the quality of K through 12 education, and number 5, and my favorite, stop the crazy. And with that, Avery, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks, Larry. So hey, everybody, my name is Avery Anderson. I am, in many regards, a political outsider. I know a lot of you don't know who I am. I don't really have a history in politics in Arizona. So I'll introduce myself a little bit, tell you about who I am as a person, and then we'll get into why I'm running and why it's important that we keep the seat blue kind of going forward. So a little bit about me just real quick. I was actually born in England to active duty deployed Air Force parents. My dad was flying F-111s at the time, eventually transitioning to the F-15. My mom was a travel nurse in England. First, I actually moved to Arizona when I was about 1 year old. So my ties go back to about 1994 here. I went out stationed at Luke Air Force Base. Early 90s. So being Air Force, we are forced to kind of pack up your life and move every 2 to 3 years, and that's really taxing. It's really demanding. So this is something I'm really used to and experienced with being the new guy, trying to win over people as best I can. When I was in high school, I was a 2-sport athlete. I played football and baseball. Actually made it to the North Carolina State Championship my senior year, kind of our athletic crowning achievement. We ended up losing, unfortunately, but there's a lot of lessons learned there that actually have, I think, positively impacted my life. And I like to make a positive spin out things that have impacted me negatively. And that's kind of a recurring theme, as you'll hear, going through kind of my quick biography. So for college, I went to a technical school. My first 2 years near Atlanta, Georgia. It was Southern Polytechnic State University. It was a research institute for Georgia Tech. I was double majoring in aerospace engineering, so rocket science, and mechanical engineering for more practical stuff. While there, I was kind of struggling to fit in. It was a pretty nerdy crowd, and I was, used to being pretty balanced. I played sports, but I graduated, the top of my class in high school. But I was having trouble fitting in. So my best friend at the time, his name was Cameron Buck. Really took me under his wing and introduced me to his friend group, and it was awesome. I was having a great time, and doing well in school, was thinking about trying out for the baseball team. And then unfortunately, he ended up committing suicide, and that really sent me down a pretty dark spiral. Mental health awareness, one of those things where you look in the mirror and say, hey, if I would have seen the signs, kind of I stepped in and stopped it, helped them out. And it's a really tough thing to deal with. And so anytime I get a platform to talk about, going to see a counselor for anything that people may be having issues with, can't vocalize, there are professionals that can help. Something I took advantage of, and I really do like to, encourage people, stop the stigma about mental health issues and make counseling normal. So that's kind of where I am on that. So once that was kind of over with, I was looking for, I kind of was starting to do bad in school. I actually ended up on a few TV shows and movies kind of in my path back. So I auditioned for a TV show called Halt and Catch Fire. I don't know if anybody's ever seen that, but I had no idea what I was doing. So the interview panel said, "Hey, we appreciate you coming out here today, but we're going to say no." But one of the producers actually said, "Hey, we like the way you present yourself. So how do you feel about going to zombie school?" So, oh, interesting. Yeah, I think I would be down for that. So I was actually in The Walking Dead as a zombie for 2 seasons, so season 4 and 5. If any Walking Dead fans out there, while I was there, I actually was able to meet and network a little bit, and I ended up being in a few other movies and TV shows. So if you've ever seen, let's see, the list is Arrested Development, Dumb and Dumber 2, so the sequel to Dumb and Dumber, which is awesome. Jim Carrey's great. Anchorman 2, and then one of the Hunger Games movies. I think it was Hunger Games 3 Part 1. But then, that was a lot of fun, but I realized it was time to kind of move on and pursue education, work on getting a real job. So I needed a change of scenery, so I ended up transferring to the University of Colorado, where I declared my major for mechanical engineering. I was able to walk onto the baseball team, which is pretty cool. And then after 2.5 years there, I got my bachelor's of science for mechanical engineering, where I worked for Vestas Wind Energy. They are the leading producer of wind energy globally. I was actually a co-inventor of one of the things they still use to this day. It is basically it's a tandem of electric vehicles. So these wind turbine blades, they are 60 meters long, roughly, which is just under 200 feet, and can weigh up to 70 tons, which is an immense amount of weight. So these are really difficult to transport kind of around the installation sites and the factories. So basically, it was 2 giant electric vehicles that were able to, they had these big clamps on them. We were to grab on both ends of the wind turbine blades and kind of drive in parallel together to kind of work and get around tight corners and were off-road capable. So it was really cool to be a part of that. And I really did enjoy my time working in the wind energy field. And I think I discovered a passion of mine working for them. Unfortunately, once for personal reasons, I had to leave Colorado. So I need to be closer to home. My parents are currently living in Las Vegas. So I was looking for jobs kind of in the Southeast and ended up in Tucson working for Raytheon. So I took a job here in 2018, working for a couple Army programs initially. And then over the course of the years, I was able to work my way up to a couple leadership roles. So currently I'm working for the Javelin program as a mechanical lead for the Javelin trainer. So we are working on, supplying Ukraine and their defense against Russia, giving them affordable training measures for the Javelin units and launchers. And then my other leadership role is I am a DGT test, so design verification testing, test lead for a advanced program working in space. Unfortunately, I'm not at liberty to talk too much about that one because it is classified, a lot of it. I'd have an active security clearance to maintain there. So kind of why I'm running. I saw that Ann Kirkpatrick was retiring at the end of term. So I wanted to get to know who was going to be filling those shoes and kind of what they stood for. And, I just want to be more involved politically as I get older. And I was going through the list. And I was a little bit, skeptical about some of the people that were running. And this was back in, I think, July or August. And I really so my biggest thing here is I really think that climate change needs to be the priority going forward for the Democratic Party. We've seen, since I've been really paying attention closely, the last decade or so has been an immense failure for climate policies really around the world, but especially here in the United States. Instead of passing comprehensive binding bills that would meaningfully reduce emissions, we mostly did nothing. We had a long decade with one negative record after another. There's been the complete lack of climate policies and the ongoing lobbying and misinformation campaigns from fossil fuel industries and the Republican Party mostly. It's been really upsetting to me that we're not taking this more seriously. This should be the most important thing probably the most important issue of our generation. And I'm still not seeing a whole lot of people that are taking this up in arms and saying, hey, this needs to be the priority going forward. There are things that are important, but this needs to be the thing that we're working on in unison. This needs to be the thing that we are spirited, passionate about, and motivated. And, I don't know if the politicians if they have the right motivations for this. So I'm an engineer by trade. I think I can bring a different perspective, different mindset. And I'm 28, right? I'm the youngest person running in this race. I think I'm the youngest person running in the Democratic Party in the country. I'm still trying to verify that, but I'm definitely one of the youngest people in the country running for office. So, I want to make decisions that impact my future, your future. These are decisions that I'm gonna have to live with the rest of my life. We look at Congress right now, the average age of Democratic leadership right now is 68 years old. And with age does come, knowledge and experience and all these great things. But, we're getting, there are people that are getting up there in age. And I think that there needs to be an infuse of younger people kind of taking over, slowly. And then I'm hoping that I can be one of those people. So I want to kind of talk for 5 or so minutes about what's happened recently, and then I'll kind of open it up for questions for you guys. I want to save some time because I know that I am new, and I want you guys to grill me as much as you can so I can kind of earn your guys' trust and let's move forward together. So I don't know if anybody's read the IPCC, so the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change reports that have come out the past few months. Part 3, which is the third and final part of their series of reports for this cycle, is going to go through kind of like a roadmap of how we get to fix this. And there is optimism for this issue that I really want to kind of spearhead. Parts 1 and 2 really establish the links between human activity and climate change, and address some of the destruction that would be caused in different scenarios. Yeah, but like I said, the third part really is the big one. It's kind of what we can do, how we can fix this kind of going forward. The report itself is huge. I do encourage you guys to read it if you do have the time. I'm still going through it myself, but I think I know it decently enough that I can talk about it in pretty good detail, and hopefully can break it down into digestible chunks. So message from this thing was pretty clear. Fossil fuel usage and production must peak before 2025, and we need to half it by 2030 to give us a shot at limiting warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. That's about 30-ish months to secure a stable future for humans on the planet. And that seems kind of daunting. That seems like a pretty big deal. And I want to make sure that, it is a big deal and we're taking it seriously. And I want to talk about what we can do to get there and make it a reality. Okay. So the IPCC features about 280 authors, so climate scientists from 65 countries, and details trends in greenhouse gas emissions as well as technology and government policies worldwide to assess whether or not it's going to meet the global goal of 1.5 degrees Celsius, which was one of the agreements in the Paris Climate Accord. To get there, really, we can't afford to build any new fossil fuel infrastructure, no new gas pipelines, no new oil drilling, no new refineries, no new coal mines, no new power plants. I think we should even go further and kind of limit and shut down some of the existing fossil fuel infrastructure, so we can hit that target. And if we do end up managing to reach net zero, where any carbon we emit is balanced with processes of absorbing it in the atmosphere, global temperature will stabilize. But to have a shot at the 1.5 degrees Celsius mark set forth in the Paris Climate Accord, that needs to be achieved by 2050. And that's coming up quick. That's almost 25 years away. So 80% of the world's energy consumption is still relying on fossil fuels, making the change. So making that change to renewables is going to take a lot of political pressure, a lot of innovation and determination. She already developed nearly all the technologies needed to move away from fossil fuels en masse. So that could be alternative fuels as like a green hydrogen, renewables like wind and solar. And we can look at more or less technological methods such as redeveloping cities, transportation, manufacturing, and construction require less energy, and to be more resilient to the extreme weather we're going to end up seeing because of the decades really of unsustainable fossil fuel usage. Now, unfortunately, there is a cost associated with this, and I want to make that clear that we can't really have our cake and eat it too. There will be some costs. So by the 2050 deadline, the report says that economic growth per person to the GDP would be a few percentage points lower. So that is something we're going to have to work on going forward in the future to sell to the developing countries, especially. But I think we can do this in America. I want to be one of the people that kind of drives that forward and make sure that we really know what we're doing and can lead by example versus what we're doing in the past is talking out of both sides of our mouth. We switch parties every 48 years, and we take back our international agreements. I want to make sure that we have a concrete plan going forward that kind of withstands the switch of power between parties, something that's concrete and can be relied on going forward. We do need to make sure that when we make this transition, we do it equitably. We need to make sure that we address that some countries have actually had, we have benefited much more than others. So here in America, for example, we've benefited from unsustainable land use and fossil fuel production for the past century plus. We need to realize that, hey, we were one of the major winners for this. We need to be one of the major players in getting the whole world moved over. Economic benefits, health benefits, moving away from fossil fuels. There's fewer cancer-causing compounds and green energy versus fossil fuel production, fresh air, sustainable cities, and we can actually, this is something I'm really excited about. Arizona in particular has the capability to be the leading producer of solar energy domestically, and that could be a lot of really good, well-paying jobs to influx into our economy, and we can kind of spearhead that movement here in southeast Arizona, especially. Yeah. So main takeaways, I want to make sure that we go through real quick. We want to make sure we ensure deep reductions of fossil fuel over the next decade. We want to electrify everything: cars, homes, appliances, everything. We need to electrify it. Kind of move away from fossil fuels. Improve energy efficiency. We can rapidly switch to alternative fuels, and we're also going to have to do active carbon capture. That's something that we're still working on. It needs to be funded, needs to be researched, because that's something we're going to have to rely on going forward to help limit our greenhouse output and get back to our stable climate. Also protecting natural carbon sinks like forests. Our oceans, actually the biggest carbon sink globally. So cleaning up the oceans is a big one, and it's going to be important to deploy it at scale. So we need to do this quickly and efficiently, and make sure we're focused on a clear path forward. And with that, I wanted to say why this seat's important. So with the redistricting, Joe Biden actually won this new district by about 610 votes, which is less than 0.5%. We're actually projected to lose this seat, according to all the polls online, and it's going to be one of the most competitive seats in the nation. So I want to make sure that the campaign itself has been a lot of fun, but at the end of the day, whoever wins this nomination for the Democratic Party, we need to be on their team to spread the word. Hey, this is who needs to be elected. This needs to be the party that needs to stay in charge to have any kind of chance at having a stable climate future and resolving this problem. We will fix it on human timescales. So with that, I think I'll open it up to some questions. I hope you guys can grill me a little bit. This is new to me, so I'm excited for it.
All right. Well, we'll give you our very best, and we have several hands up already. So if you want to ask a question, raise your hand using Zoom or put it in the chat. And I believe Joe Danishevsky will raise his hand when he's got some questions. So let's turn to you, Susie Anderson. Go right ahead.
Hi, Avery. I have relatives in Texas. And let me tell you, that is going to be a hard win to go over to reducing fossil fuels. Also, which is it, North or South Dakota, where they've got big shale deposits that they're working on. And then what do you do, probably for my question, is about plastics. How do we reduce the manufacture of plastics from all our fossil fuels? What do we use in place of it? Yeah,
that's actually a really good question. As far as plastic usage. That's a tough one because it's built into our day-to-day life and our lifestyles now. The only thing I can say to that right now is we need to really reduce our use, our needs, and find greener packaging options going forward. We've actually already found the first traces of microplastics in human blood, and that's actually terrifying. We don't know the long-term health replication of that, and I don't have a great answer for you, unfortunately. But if you give me your email address, I'll look into this further. I can ask some colleagues of mine who have worked in the plastics industry before what they recommend, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can.
All right, you can put that in the chat if you'd like, Susie. Let's turn now to Michael Bryan, a member of our board. Go right ahead, Michael.
Thank you. Avery, during your introduction, you mentioned that when you were evaluating whether to run for this race, you found that there were some deficiencies in the existing other candidates. I was wondering if you would be willing to expound upon that subject as to what those deficiencies are in those candidates and what sets you apart in more detail.
Yeah, so I don't want to name drop anybody. I do think that in politics in general, it's the people that really shouldn't, people you don't want running are the people that end up running. The people that really need to be running usually stay the heck away from politics, and probably for a good reason. But I just didn't see anybody with a major message of, climate change action is going to be the defining issue for our generation and how we deal with it. I still don't see it. I've heard, both of my, I don't want to use the word opponents, we're on the same team, with them speak. And I just don't see, right now, I don't see goals aligning in terms of climate change action and how, where it ranks on their priority list.
Barbara Warren has a question. Go right ahead, Barbara.
Thank you. Avery, as I understood it, you are working for a company that builds nuclear armed missiles. Is that correct? Okay. Are you aware of the report on nuclear winter that reports that one exchange of nuclear armed bombs or missiles would result in a devastating global climate disaster called nuclear winter, which would, I think, undo anything we've ever tried to do with climate change. Are you aware of that report?
I've not read it. I'm aware of it. I don't know specifics that it mentions out. I will say that, nuclear winter is kind of a doomsday scenario. So there will be, if that's the case, there are going to be bigger issues going forward in terms of short-term survivability of the planet than we're worried about here with climate change. Because at that point, you've had nuclear war, and that's going to be mass destruction, mass casualty, and then a complete breakdown likely of a lot of our intergovernmental policy and structure.
How do you justify having those weapons in place and ready to use?
So there's always the argument of self-defense. It's a deterrent, right? So you look at what Russia's doing right now, and they're using them as kind of a threat to do what they want. For us, being kind of the what's ended up being the global police, we can kind of ensure that our way of life, our democracy, our government style, our population remains safe for the most part, and that no one will attempt to do what they're doing right now in Ukraine, right?
All right, let's turn to Stephen Linder. Go right ahead.
You don't really mention the one big elephant in the room in Arizona, and that's water. And certainly when you're talking about younger voters, it's going to affect them the most. Developers are such a strong lobby in Arizona, and all they're doing is building and building and building, and there really is no plan for what's going to happen in the future with water and the lack of it. What do you see as a plan for the future of Arizona as far as water?
Yeah, so this is a really big issue, and I've started looking into a couple of reports for like a roadmap on how we fix our water crisis. What it's turned out, I think on a national level, I do think that there is a lot of promise in some emerging technologies. So I know desalinization has gotten a bad rap from some people because of its energy intensive processes. But for example, if California's coastal cities can get on a desal, a green desal plant, which do exist. Israel gets about 80% of their water from desalinization. That'll decrease their reliance on our water sources here in Arizona. There are actually some saltwater aquifers, especially up north in the Phoenix area, where smaller scale desalination plants would make that water accessible. We also need to do some conservation efforts. Reduce our use of water, do it more sustainable water use. Use our water treatment facilities for more wide scale use for agricultural water uses, which is our biggest user here in Arizona. So kind of conclusion for that one, I think we need to look more into funding green desal plant efforts, either small scale, big scale. Everything that can be a potential solution for this problem needs to be looked at, funded, and researched, so we can make good decisions going forward.
Chris Hawkins, go ahead and unmute and go ahead and ask your question.
Thanks. I've got about 3 of them, but I'll keep it to one.
Just pick one. Pick one. That
I know. So my cousin is in the aerospace industry, and we had a long discussion. He's an engineer as well. And I just wondered how you square technology and innovation, which is often done within the corporate environment and is very important. But a lot of corporations are also, ripping off people, and dark money is like running the show a lot of times. And I'm going to put this in the context of someone like Elon Musk. For instance, great with the EV vehicles and great innovation, but also the guy is not really necessarily, as we understand it, very concerned about the truth. He's a little bit into sort of the controversial conspiracy type theory stuff, and has said that, that might be something he would just open the doors up to on Twitter, say. I'm just using that as an example. If you go to Congress, how will you square the need for innovation and technology with the corporate craziness and influence on our politics? Yeah,
so there's a lot to digest there.
I know.
I want to touch on Twitter and social media first, briefly, and then we'll kind of go back in the second part of your question. So Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, these are all social media. This is all a brand new for us humans way of communicating, and right now we're bad at it. We're still figuring out how to do this effectively. It's one of the most complex systems we know of, because we have billions of people communicating instantly, have very few filters on what doesn't get posted. So that's something we need to look into, how we can effectively govern the usage and implementation of social media kind of going forward. I'm a little bit worried about that. I don't know if we're asking the right questions in terms of how we govern, how we make the rules for how this naturally evolves over time, how it progresses. For the second part of your question, that's been something I think we've had to deal with for a while. Corporate interests kind of infusing into our government policy decisions. That's a tough one. I'm not sure I have a great answer for that. Kind of the nature of the beast with the capitalist society is, the free market does what it can. Technology moves forward pretty quickly. To separate that and make sure that we're not going too far and having companies have free reign completely. We need to make sure that when new things do come out, when there is progress being made on new technologies, new innovations, that we have regular check-ins. Make sure we do keep a close eye on what's happening, and make sure that we're able to formulate questions as new technologies emerge, as new innovations come forth.
Tucson Citizens Climate Lobby on DGT a couple of weeks ago, they advocate passage of House Bill 2307, the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Tax Act. Wondering what your position on this is. This is to create a carbon tax and a dividend back to homeowners.
Yeah, so I am one for, I do think we should be ending our fossil fuel subsidies and moving that same money into more renewable subsidies. So I'd be in favor of any legislation that does that. So you get companies that will pollute in mass scale, you know, to hit our goal, to keep our climate safe. Going forward, I do think that there needs to be some kind of a financial penalty for companies that exceed, you know, normal pollution output. And I would love to see tax breaks, tax incentives for green energy, for solar application on houses, for people buying cars, make those more affordable for people. Anything that helps get us away from fossil fuel usage and pollution, I am 100% for.
Okay, we have a question from Mike Bryan. Go ahead, Mike.
Avery, are you familiar with the Progressive Caucus's Green New Deal plan? And is that something that you support? Does it go far enough? And are there additional policy measures that you would like to see that actually would, you know, require the allocation of federal funds in order to accomplish?
Yeah. So the Green New Deal, I recommend everybody here read it. It's only about 14 pages. It's nothing huge. It just kind of outlines, you know, what the problem is, what we need to do to fix it, and how, and a little bit of a roadmap how we fix that equitably. I do think it addresses everything we need to do. It is a little bit extreme in what it proposes, you know, and Republicans love to grab onto the fact that, you know, if you just read what it says, you can interpret it meaning, you know, cut out all meat from your diet, right? And, you know, that's just, you know, black and white what needs to be done to hit a goal. So we had the original goal, I think it was 1.5 degrees was our goal, but, you know, we'd be okay if we hit 2 degrees. Now we're finding out that we're going to hit 2 degrees here much faster than anticipated. So, you know, we do need some abrupt changes. I would really support, you know, moving all federal funding going to fossil fuels into renewable energies. Anything we can do to limit that impact going forward, I think is a really good idea. I'm open to, you know, kind of going through the Green New Deal with some, you know, practical revisions. As someone who's worked in industry, someone who's kind of experienced it, I'd be open for that. But yeah, no, I think the Green New Deal is a really good place to start. I'm hesitant to jump on board 100% because, you know, it can be interpreted that there is a lot of lifestyle changes that need to be kind of halted, and a lot of industries would really suffer going forward if, you know, we implement this tomorrow.
Let's turn again to Joe Danishevsky.
Yeah, ready to rock and roll. So Susie Anderson asks, what about women's rights, healthcare, and the ERA? What are your views on those?
Yeah, so I'm not a woman. So my opinions do not hold as much weight as women's opinions do on women's rights. I'm completely supportive. I'm pro-choice. You know, I think, you know, any decisions, you know, regarding abortion rights are between a woman and her doctor. I find that the recent movement from the Supreme Court, the draft opinion that was leaked, is disgusting. You know, we have a potential future where kids that are born, you know, tomorrow are going to have less rights than those that were born in the 50s, right? That's just not the way. That's not progress. That's regressive. So completely supportive of women's rights. I do think that this is one of the advantages I have as being a sort of political outsider is I don't have a voting record on a lot of the issues like this that are popping up, whereas some of my again, opponents of strong work from the same team, but they do. So you can ask me questions and I can talk about how I feel about them, but I don't have a solid voting record to go back and see, hey, what's this guy's voting record on women's rights? You know, how does he vote on abortion rights? So yeah, I'm open.
Yeah, would you like to opine on healthcare and ERA?
Yeah, healthcare. You know, the Affordable Care Plan, Affordable Care Act, Obamacare has provided a lot of you know, great resources to people who can't otherwise afford, you know, basic healthcare. You know, America is the richest country in the world. We're the only country in the developing nation that does not have universal basic healthcare. I think that needs to be something we really look at and say, hey, you know, we can afford to have the best healthcare in the world, and a lot of means we do. It's just too expensive. It's too expensive and inaccessible to a significant number of people, especially people that really need it the most. So yeah, I do think that we need to have some kind of universal form of basic healthcare available to everybody, so that everybody gets treatment that they need to live in this country.
Okay. Most work in Congress is done in committees and subcommittees. Which two committees or subcommittees would you want to be assigned to and why?
Oh man, this is something I haven't really put a whole lot of thought into, honestly. But I would, anything involving renewable energies, I'd love to be part of that. Anything involving natural resources, like parks, national parks, forestries, I would love to be part of that. Anything that I can, be a part of to, be a face, be a voice of, climate action. I'm totally up for, and I would love the opportunity to work in committees for that deal in those areas.
Okay, and Lee Oler asks, who else is running in your district?
Yeah, so there are two other people running in my district. So CD6, this is most of southeastern Arizona. It kind of goes from, so roughly speaking, as Casa Grande down to Sierra Vista, essentially everything east of I-10 with some overlap across I-10, all the way over to New Mexico. So the opponents or the other candidates in my district are Daniel Hernandez, who's current state representative. I'm not sure what district he's currently serving, but the redistricting, everything is kind of boggled in my mind. And the other is Kirsten Engel, who is current state senator for, I also can't remember that district either. Yeah, but it's just us three.
Okay, and from Janice Siegel, one problem with desalination is that transport creates sacrifice zones, like the one we put in CAP channels. To transport the water, they use a whole dirty coal plant. To remove the coal, they used up all the water in the Hopi and Navajo aquifer. Now they have no water. What would you think?
So for is that regarding transport of water resources for desal plants? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So my initial idea, and again, that's not my area of expertise, but my initial idea of how this would work is, the desal plants would be localized, so they would serve the local communities that have access to water. So the distribution methods of the water would be using existing, water transportation methods. So you'd have coastal cities in California, for example, they would use local sourced water to desal and provide water for them. If there's saltwater aquifers, we'd tap into that, use that local water to support fresh water, supply fresh water for the local community. I don't think we've solved the issue of kind of long distance water transport yet. There is infrastructure in place. You did mention that there is the current fossil fuel pipelines and such that may be used in the future. So there is actually infrastructure we could use going forward, but there would be some significant work to make those suitable for water transport.
All right, we've got a follow-up question from Mike Bryant. Go right ahead, Mike.
Thanks, Larry. Yeah, this is kind of both a question, an audition, I suppose, and a piece of advice. It's great to have a positive message, and it's great to try and involve new people in the political process. But the reality is that a lot of the people who need to vote for you are not young people who are focused like a laser on climate change, because they don't really understand the threat at all. And fear is a major motivator in political activity. I would like to hear you discuss the result, the impact of our failure to address this issue. I'd like to hear you scare the hell out of me and motivate, your voters, your base, to turn out and make this a central issue. So it's kind of an audition that way, and I want to hear you scare me.
Yeah. Okay. I can do my best. Real quick. We're getting kind of tight on time. But yeah. So let's just talk about warming above 2 degrees. So 2 degrees makes all the extremes more extreme. You get hotter summers here in the desert. You get colder winters. And more Arctic environments. And you got all of our ecosystems become under pressure. So there's a lot of unforeseen, we don't know what happens on the biological scale. How are our local ecosystems going to deal with the increase in temperature or temperature extremes? At 3 degrees, significant parts of the earth, especially in developing countries, might be unable to feed their populations. Heat waves will become a major global issue. Tucson is one of the areas that are actually in danger of becoming inhospitable. Large-scale natural systems will break down. The scale and frequency of hurricanes will increase through the roof, something we've never seen before. Fires, droughts will increase and cause trillions and trillions of dollars in damages. Poor regions and farmers will be hit the hardest. We'll have hundreds of millions of people that will be climate refugees, need to leave their homes, and you get an influx of people in areas that they're not prepared to deal with that many people, and then that puts an extra strain on how they're coping with the extremes in weather. If you get to the 48 degrees range, that's apocalyptic. That's something where we'll be unable to sustain any kind of real human population. We're talking, casualties in the billions, and a complete hostile environment on the planet. Just real quick on that. Yeah. So, right now our goal is 1.5 degrees. So 2 degrees is probably where we're going to end up, somewhere in that range. So, we're not too far away from having, those serious implications going forward. And I want to make sure that, you might not see it in the next, 10, 20 years, but, if you go to the scale of like 50 to 100 years, that is absolutely a possibility. And I need to make sure that that's well communicated, and we know the risks associated with climate inaction.
All right, we're getting low on time, so let's have our final question from Barbara Warren. Go ahead, Barbara.
Are you aware of the fact that Congressman Grijalva is a co-sponsor, among many others, especially among the young Democrats in the House, for Medicare for All? It's a bill that would cover everybody in the country under a single health care bill. Are you aware of that? And would you support that?
I am not aware of it right now. I will look into it, though. On the surface, it does sound like something I would definitely support. I do think that it is a good idea for everybody to have access to some kind of basic Medicare plan. A lot of people can't afford basic health care, and it's really unacceptable for the richest country on earth. And I think we owe it to our citizens who live here to have some kind of basic level of assurance that, if you do get sick, we have your back. We'll give you the resources to fight for this, to fight for your life and get better. And I think that's something that is something that I would definitely support.
Well, I encourage you to read the bill and ask for your support. I also just wanted to point out the thing I asked about before, the nuclear winter. I encourage you to read that report and understand that we would have a situation that would be the exact opposite to a climate disaster, a global climate disaster. We would have a global climate disaster on the other end of the spectrum. But I ask you to consider that and think about what we can do about nuclear arms in this world.
Avery, we've run out of time. I wonder if you would be kind enough to tell us how people can get in touch with you. Where are you on social media and so forth? Do you already have a network of people to support you? And how can we get in touch with you?
Yeah, so my campaign website is averyforcongress.com. Nice, simple, easy to remember. My Instagram handle is the same. It's Avery for Congress. Working on a Facebook page right now. I am the definition of grassroots. I'm not taking any money from any corporation, so this is very locally funded, kind of smaller scale at the moment. So I am looking for help. If there's anybody that would like to volunteer to help canvas and spread the word. Even if I don't win this race, it's something that I think that if at the end of the day I can get the winner of this race to take climate more seriously, or I can even inspire people that are not interested in politics right now, but are better than me to run for office at some level, I consider this to be a major success. I want to vocalize that message as well, that, hey, we can do this. It takes normal people to take action and kind of form the future you want to see. So again, that's my website's averyforcongress.com. There's a portal there to donate if you guys are so inclined. I'd really appreciate it if you have the means. If not, totally okay. I am also looking for volunteers for canvassing.
Is that Avery for Congress with a 4 or FOR?
No, so it's FOR. Everything's spelled out.
Okay.
All right. And with that, I want to thank you, Avery, for coming to today's meeting. It's very interesting to hear your views. And I'm going to call the this meeting of Democrats of Greater Tucson to a close. We'll see you all next week.